Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kevin Havelock, Regional Director for Corporate and Commercial Banking at the Royal Bank of Scotland. I'm also here on behalf of the Edinburgh Chamber of Commerce this afternoon. Delighted to see you all. This is the first time that the Edinburgh Chamber of Commerce has held the Business Festival. And after such a difficult year, we felt it was really important to create a platform for people to connect, to be informed and inspired round about business. And I'm looking forward to achieving all of that together today. And in the festival this year, we've had over 1,000 attendees at events, with some people attending one or many across the week. And particularly at the Royal Bank of Scotland, we are delighted to be supporting this session today. The Royal Bank, we have a purpose-led strategy of championing potential, helping people, families and businesses to thrive. And within that purpose, we have 3 areas of focus. The first one is learning, also enterprise and climate. And the session today will focus on climate, both in terms of at the most general level, exploring why it's an area of concern for business, how we're addressing it, but also we will have a spotlight on electric vehicles and the issue of charging them as well. The format of the event today is relatively straightforward. We will have a presentation first, followed by questions and answers. Please feel free to type your question into the Q&A function or into chat, actually, I think. So if you go into your settings, it will say chat. If you could make sure that you select everyone so we can all see the questions, and we will just go through them after the presentation. After the Q&A, we will split into breakout rooms where you will have the opportunity to discuss what you've heard and also to consider next steps with fellow businesses in the session today. Just a little bit of housekeeping. If you could stay on mute until either invited to speak if you raise your hand during the Q&A or in the breakout rooms. And also I will be sharing my screen throughout the presentation, just so you're aware what's going to happen there. So now I would like to introduce our 2 main speakers for you today. In a few minutes, we will hear from Hitan Sonpal, who is a senior member of the bank's dedicated Future Mobility Group, which is addressing the challenge of decarbonising transport in the UK. Hitan was awarded Sustainability Executive of the Year at the Green Business Awards in 2015 and is delivering solutions for businesses covering transport, electric vehicle charging infrastructure, and also supply chain ecosystems. But first, though, please allow me to introduce Brian Foshola. He is Director of Green and Sustainable Asset Finance. Brian is dedicated to driving the Royal Bank's climate agenda and providing businesses with funding to support the transition to a low carbon economy. Among the numerous transactions he has done, he has recently led the refinance of the largest community-owned wind farm in Scotland. So Brian, I'd like to hand over to you now while I prepare the screen share. 1 second.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Really great intro. I'm just going to wait for the slides to come up and then we can crack on. Perfect. So afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining this session today. It's great to see, the level of interest in the future of decarbonisation and, the broader topic of sustainability. So my name is Brian Foshola. I'm a director within our Green Energy and Sustainable Asset Finance division of the Royal Bank. And I'm excited to speak today about what sustainability means for us as a business, what we're doing to reduce our own carbon footprint, and how we're supporting our customers to transition to a low carbon economy. So if we move on to the first slide, sustainability has increasingly become a very important topic, not just for financial institutions, but for the wider business community. In our view, sustainability means meeting our own needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs, not just natural resources, but even social and economic resources. The slides don't appear to have changed, Kevin. I'm not sure. There we go. Perfect. And we've seen, from a climate perspective, global temperatures continue to rise at about 1 degree above pre-industrial levels. Scientists believe that the Earth could warm up to about 3 degrees above pre-industrial levels by 2100. And on the climate side, the majority of the UK greenhouse gas emissions arise from our production and consumption of energy, whether that's energy used in transport, manufacturing, or even power in our homes when we turn the lights and the kettle on, which is why, in recent years, there's been a significant focus on switching to renewable energy to help decarbonize existing power sources. A recent study has shown us that the recovery tilted towards green stimulus and reduction in fossil fuels is vital to helping combat that negative impact of climate change. So if we move on to the next slide, from our perspective, what's our role in this? We view the role of business, it has evolved over time. So in the past, we used to view the issue of sustainability, particularly in relation to climate change, either as a philanthropic exercise or as part of our CSR activities. Now, businesses need to play more of an active role because we see this as a journey. So from viewing it as some sort of add-on to making sustainability part and parcel of the decision-making process within all our organizations. So the goal is not just to make sustainability a part of everyday business, but to create shared value and become net contributors where there's an overall positive impact of business activities that's greater than the negative effects. So on that chart, you can see that we are on the journey as the Royal Bank. We believe we're somewhere in between, embedding sustainability and creating that shared value. And the ambition is that we end up in a net positive position where our overall positive impact is greater than any negative impact. When we move on to the next slide, because to that effect, when we think about sustainability and our role in it, last year, our CEO, Alison, set out 5 key commitments to the market in terms of our ambition to become the leading bank in helping to address the climate change that we face. So those 5 commitments include playing our part in accelerating the speed of transition, helping to end the most harmful activities, so including stopping lending to underwriting companies with more than 15% of their activities related to thermal or coal or major oil and gas producers, except where there is credible evidence that they've got a transition plan that's aligned to the 2015 Paris alignment in place by the end of 2021. We also made a commitment that we'll champion climate change solutions, and that includes setting apart 25% of the spaces in our accelerator hubs and reserving those for businesses whose core offering supports sustainable environmental activities. We also made the commitment we'll embed climate change into our culture and decision making. And the 5th commitment was that we'll make our own operations climate positive by 2025. So how are we doing on those commitments so far? We recently released our 2020 climate disclosure report, and on the next slide, when we look at the next slide, some of the key achievements we've made includes reducing significantly our combined scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions by 33% against a 2019 baseline. Our waste per full-time employee is also reduced from 4.2 kilograms a week to about 3.4. And our 2025 target is to maintain our commitment to sending zero waste to landfill in the UK and the Republic of Ireland. Since 2015, our overall paper consumption was reduced by 56%. 14% of that was delivered in 2020. So pretty decent steps from our perspective. When we move on to the next slide, some of the other things that we've been doing to embed that culture of sustainability. In 2019, the Royal Bank was jointly the first company to globally commit to all 3 climate group initiatives. First initiative was the RE100, where we pledged to use only renewable electricity in our direct global operations by 2025. We're effectively operating now with 100% electricity being sourced from renewable sources, which is a massive, massive achievement. The second climate group initiative, which we made a commitment to, was the EP100, where we pledged to improve energy productivity by 40% by 2025 against a 2015 baseline. And the third is our EV100 commitment, where we pledged to install electric vehicle charging infrastructure and upgrade our own electric vehicle fleet, because we believe in leading by example. In 2020, we installed 20 charge points in our Belfast offices, and we've got 250 charger installations planned for our Gogarburn headquarters. We expect that that will become the largest single site in the UK with EV chargers installed. And by the end of 2021, we expect to have at least 600 chargers installed across our estate. So these are all things that we're doing. And from our perspective, we've also commissioned and invested in training over 1,000 members of staff on climate-related issues in partnership with the University of Edinburgh and the Cambridge University, making sure that we embed our role in climate positive operations within the business. As I said at the start, it's a journey. So we're encouraging businesses to join us, and I understand that there are several challenges that businesses face when embracing sustainability and making it an integral part of operations. So things like education, understanding what the opportunities are in the market. I've had a lot of businesses say to me, why do I need to think about sustainability? Why change a winning strategy? And my response has always been the issue of sustainability continues to gain traction, and regardless of where businesses sit within that supply chain, they will become impacted either positively or negatively when we think about things like regulation, including things like the clean air zones, or even larger organizations that they supply to, which want to make sure that they source their products from sustainable operators. And the other thing, we recognize that businesses face is the funding challenge. From our perspective, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and it's baby steps. So things like switching energy, little steps can be taken. Switching to energy efficiency assets can help bolster sustainability credentials. It can help reduce costs, like switching to LED lighting, for example. Undertaking less travel, encouraging remote working, reducing paper trail. All those little actions can make a difference. When we move on to the next slide, it's what are we doing to support businesses, because that's the main question. We've got a role to play. Businesses have got a role to play. But as a bank, what's our role in this? And there are quite a number of things that we've done and we've trialed in the market, some of which are on this slide and some of which are not on, but I'll just rattle through some of them really quickly. So we've recently launched a Go Green Hub. And that hub aims to motivate customers to make behavioral changes. So through providing education and thought leadership content, as well as simple and accessible tools and resources to help customers better understand their own environmental impact. We've launched green mortgages that offer lower interest rates for our customers purchasing homes. We're building a prototype of a carbon footprint pilot to help our SMEs to track their carbon footprint using their transactional data and implement actions to reduce their footprint. So we're partnering with Kogo to deliver this prototype, and it's currently in the testing phase. Within the last 2 weeks, we also launched our inaugural €1 billion bond for affordable social housing. And so that will help to spur activity within that space. Specifically on climate, we've funded over 6.5 gigawatts of renewable energy estimated to have reduced at least 1.9 million tonnes of carbon emissions across the UK and the Republic of Ireland. Our financing of wind projects alone is estimated to have provided enough energy to meet the annual demand and annual energy requirement of every home in Wales and Northern Ireland for at least a year. You know, and our financing has the ability to produce enough energy to power 3 million homes for a year. What we've also done is we've made a commitment to the market to provide at least an additional £20 billion of financing for climate and sustainable purposes by the end of 2022. At the moment, we are already over the 12 billion mark. So we continue to see our role as very active in this space and continue to support businesses as much as we can. And in the next slide, it's you know, focused on what type of technologies we funded in the past. You know, so when businesses are looking to switch to low carbon fuel sources, you know, things like wind turbines, solar PVs, LEDs, smart meters, and you know, with the hot topic now of decarbonising transport, you know, we've recently launched a partnership with which, you know, Hitton will talk about shortly, to help our customers, you know, purchase the cost of to help our customers purchase electric vehicle charge points. So I think that is a very nice segue into Hitton to talk about what we've recently launched in the market. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Brian, and afternoon to everyone on the call today. So just as a quick intro, my name is Hitton Sompau, and I'm a director within the newly created RBS Future Mobility Group. To start off with, firstly, I'm really excited to have the opportunity at this event today to talk about the bank's very first partnership through the Future Mobility Group, and how this can help our customers transition to an electric future. Now, charging ahead to net zero has been something that we've been working on for the past 12 months, and having spoken to over 15 suppliers across the UK, we wanted to identify the best partner, not just for the bank, but also for our customers as well. Now, through this process, we were keen to make sure that we selected a partner that can provide us with a solution that's unique in the market, adds value, and has the ability of serving our customers for their individual needs, making it easy, simple, and accessible as well. Now, on 14th of February last year, RBS's CEO, Alison Rose, set out the bank's plans on climate, and Brian's given a really good, thorough overview of that ambition in leading the challenge on climate, etc. Now, within that message was the creation of the Future Mobility Group as well, which is a team that's devised of individuals within the bank to focus purely on future mobility and how we can support customers, because it is a bit of a minefield, and we're here to try and come up with something that we can support our customers where they're unsure about making that transition, and how a bank can kind of support them through that journey as well. Now, Brian's already given you a good overview of what we're doing as a bank already, and talked about the bank achieving net zero carbon across our operations in 2020, using 100% renewable electricity across our estate. I mean, one of the great stories in 2020 was that 66% of our new staff company car scheme vehicles transitioned over to electric as well. We also, as Brian has said, we signed off on installing 600 charge points across our whole estate in the UK, totaling 600 charge points as part of our EV 100 commitment. And finally, I think the highlight of 2020 for us was in creating our first in the market collaboration with Octopus Energy to help support not just customers and businesses, but also our staff members as well to a low carbon economy. Next slide, please. So why should individuals and businesses act now? Now, transport is the largest emitting sector for greenhouse gas emissions in the UK. Electric vehicles have slowly started to creep up in numbers last year, with EVs equating to circa 10% of total number of vehicles on the road. Now, the incline has been great, even in a COVID disrupted market. And with technology, variety, and range improving, EVs are now becoming a serious option for both consumers and businesses as their next choice of vehicle. Now, we have already seen in the past support from government on climate-related initiatives. However, we've also seen initiatives removed once that growth has started to accelerate. Today, we have government grants available, but how long? I'm not sure. So what is available at the moment? The UK government is paying £3,000 grants towards new electric vehicles. So if you purchase an electric vehicle, the dealerships that you go to will add that £3,000 deduction onto the cost of the purchase price. There's exemption from ultra low emission zones, clean air zones, and congestion charge as well. And I do know that clean air zones are coming out in Scotland, having spoken to a number of local authorities last year. And there's 21 boroughs in the UK that have to put a report to UK government by the end of this year to demonstrate what the air pollution levels are. And if it's above the threshold that they've set, then those cities would have to be putting clean air zones in place as well. Charging infrastructure grants, £350 per charger has been set aside by the UK government, and businesses have the ability to claim up to 40 chargers on a single site as well. Additional charging grants are available for customers in Scotland, which is great news, through the Energy Savings Trust as well. 0% benefit in kind tax, a huge boost for company car drivers, but to be mindful that 0% will go to 1% on the 1st of April this year, and then the following year it will remain at 2% for 2 years. Green credentials as a business as well, sending the right message as a business to both employees and customers as well. Now, all of these not only help financially, but they also support the overall climate agenda as well. Next slide, please, Kevin. How does charging infrastructure very much fit into this with a bang? Well, the UK government has already made the decision to ban all new car and van sales with petrol or diesel by 2030 and hybrids by 2035. Now, 9 years is not a long time. And we've already started to see businesses across the UK transitioning and benefiting from the support available and financial savings made by going electric as well. The question we hear a lot about is, do businesses make that transition now and benefit from the support today? Or do they decide to wait it out and be forced to make that transition with no support in the future? I guess this all depends on what stage the business is at on their climate agenda and what impact it would have to not transition sooner as well. And the UK is expecting circa 10 million EVs on the road by 2030, which will require significant investment from car and van manufacturers to change their existing operating model, which has been around for decades, as I'm sure you guys are all aware, and move to a new operating platform to meet this deadline. The likes of Ford, Jaguar, and only recently Volvo had made commitments to electrify all of their vehicles that they produce from 2025 onwards. And this is a big move for any business, but one that's expected to continue with other car manufacturers as well. With expected increase in electric vehicles comes a need for charging infrastructure. And the UK is expected to invest circa £28 billion by 2030 to meet this demand. The UK government has already pledged significant funds to accelerate this transition for both businesses and domestic homes. And this is why we've worked really hard in order to come up with the right partnership that offers a bundled solution that is simple, cheaper, and greener for our customers as well. Moving on to the next slide, Kevin, please. So, as I highlighted at the beginning, we have gone into a partnership with a company called Octopus Energy. Octopus are not very much your typical energy company, but one of the things we really liked about them is customers were at the heart of what they do. They've been awarded Which recommended provider 4 years running. They've been 5-star rated on Trustpilot as well. And they were the only company in the UK that was willing to come up with something innovative that will not just help them win a contract with us, but also to provide something that's different and a game changer in the market to support our customers. Kevin, if we can move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So what is this offering that we've got with Octopus Energy? So it's the first in the market offering that two businesses have come together in order to provide a solution. Now, charging infrastructure is going to play a critical role in the transition to an electrified future, with the ban coming in just under 9 years. But 2025 is the new 2030 at the moment, with a lot of large organizations and car manufacturers making commitments that they will be producing electric vehicles from 2025. So through this proposition that we've got with Octopus Energy, rather than it being a minefield, we wanted to make that end-to-end journey as simple and easy for our customers. So you can get a discounted electric vehicle charge point through this offering. By putting in a charge point, you could consider putting an innovative energy tariff in. To give you an example, Octopus Energy have 2 energy tariffs. One is an Agile tariff and one is an Octopus Go tariff. Now, being an EV driver myself, I'm on the Agile tariff, which is time of use tariff. So if the wind's blowing or the sun's shining, the renewable energy technologies generate more power. And I've never come across it in my whole entire life where an energy company sends you a text message when they've generated too much power to say, dear customer, please don't forget to charge your vehicle tonight, because it's either free or we're going to pay you pence per kilowatt to charge your vehicle and use any other electricity within your home as well. 3 times in December, once in January, and twice in February. Once you've got that energy tariff, you need a smart meter for that as well. So by doing that, again, they can provide a free smart meter as part of that solution as well. Now, some businesses may have grid capacity issues on site. Now, Octopus Energy can provide a solution to look at grid upgrades, but those can be costly depending on the location that you're at. So they can provide solar and battery options as well, where you can generate your own energy in order to power the charge points that you require as well. Again, a fleet management tool, if you do have a fleet, this is something that can connect all of the charge points that you look to install, not just at your business premises, but also for your employees as well, where vehicles are taken home overnight and charging is done as well at home. So again, expenses are really easy as well. And I think the most innovative element of this whole solution is the electric juice network. Being an EV driver, I need about 20 apps on my phone in order to access every single public charging network across the UK. Octopus have designed a technological platform where they're consolidating the UK public charging network onto one single app and one single RFID card. Kevin, if we can move on to the next slide, please. Now, I appreciate that there are a number of elements on this proposition with Octopus, but it all starts with a charger, because ultimately the charger is the whole proposition that we've done with Octopus, and all of the other elements that I've talked about complement the overall charging proposition as well. Finally, moving on to the next slide, the benefits of using Octopus. One of the things that, and the feedback that we've had since we've launched this into the market and the customers that we've spoken to, is rather than having to access 6 different suppliers to get all of those elements that I've gone through, Octopus will provide a single point of contact that will talk you through your individual business needs, understand what the requirement is, carry out a feasibility survey on your site, and then provide you with a solution that meets your requirements. And again, with that solution, convenience and ease is the #1 priority for us. Finally, just going on to the next slide, I wanted to just provide this example that Octopus have kindly put together for us. And we've put a fact sheet on this. Now, I appreciate we have an audience in Scotland at the moment, and this is more focused to an audience in London, but noting that clean air zones and ultra low emission zones will be coming in effect in due course in numerous cities, I wanted to kind of just bring together the benefits. Now, as you can see, this is based on an example of 5 diesel vans versus 5 electric vans, and it breaks down the ultra low emission zone and the congestion charge. As you can see, the fuel cost as well for those 5 diesel vans, because they're very much an urban delivery example of vehicles going in short distances versus electric vehicles, and we have increased that to give it a bit more room from a comparison perspective. But the savings are phenomenal. based on diesel versus electric. Now, I appreciate there are no finance payments in there or insurance or servicing, etc. But based on our experience, on the conversations that we've had, servicing is a lot cheaper on electric vehicles than they are on diesel and petrol vehicles. I mean, there are over 256 moving parts in a ICE vehicle, which is an internal combustion engine vehicle, and there's less than 30 moving parts in an electric vehicle. So again, this provides an overview of the expected savings, and hopefully that brings it to life for yourself as well. I'm now going to pass back to Kevin, but thank you for listening, and hopefully you found that useful.
Great, Hitton, thank you very much for that. Let me just stop the screen share now. I think we've got some questions that we would like to run through. So let me just go into the chat and see where we are. So the first question has come from Mark. How does a company's green initiatives and credentials help in recruiting and retaining people? Does it help to attract talent, especially in younger generations? Hitton, Brian, who would like to offer a view on that?
I think, sorry, go on, Brian, you fire away first.
Yeah, I was just going to say I'm happy to jump on that one. So I think in terms of sustainability credentials, it's very important. And what we're seeing is a trend of, younger employees looking for work, within a company that's got sustainability at the heart of everything. Because at the moment, purpose almost trumps that monetary remuneration element of it. So purpose is a very key piece of what people are looking out for. And I think when we look internally, for example, we notice that trend within the organization. So we've got a Sustainable Futures Network, which is an employee-led network that focuses on, things like climate change, sustainability within the business. And that network is actually led by, a colleague who's joined the business, about 3 years ago. So we're increasingly seeing that trend. And when we think about sustainability, sometimes the little things you do, by encouraging remote working, all of those appeal to the younger generation who find flexibility really important, as part of, any organization that they join. So yes, it is really a part and parcel of our recruitment strategy. And I think businesses need to continue to give thought to how they embed sustainability, because it does form part and parcel of recruiting and retaining exceptional talent within the organization.
Good, Brian, thank you for that. Hitton, would you add anything in there?
Yeah, no, I would do. And it's interesting. And I was just bringing it up on my screen, actually, based on some of the research that we've seen. And I'm trying to find the source, which I will come back to you on. But we did have a fact from an organization that actually said that employees are more likely to retain their employment with an employer if they do see that the company is looking to install green initiatives and be more sustainable. So again, definitely an area that we are seeing. And I think we're living proof, really, Kevin, being part of the RBS group, where we're seeing so much activity within the business. I mean, we've been doing climate for decades now within the bank, but ever since Alison Rose has highlighted this being one of the top 3 areas of focus, I mean, all parts of the bank are working on climate initiatives, and people are really excited about it, which only highlights that they care and they want to do something more purposeful and supporting not just our customers, but also our employees internally as well. So yeah, I'd definitely say so.
Good, thank you both for that. I see that Mark had dropped out and just come back in, so unfortunately probably missed the answer to his question, but it was a brilliant question, and hopefully everyone else got something away with that one, and we can maybe pick up with Mark later. The next question is about COP26 happening in Glasgow. What's planned in Edinburgh to happen at the same time? Paul, thanks for the question. I think various different events will be revealed over the course of the next few weeks, and I know that there is something called the Pathway to the to COP26 that will unveil a series of events. So that should become clearer before the end of the month. So yeah, thank you for that question, and that's standby. Couple of other questions. A question from Jane. Are you able to go into more detail about the carbon footprint pilot for SMEs that was mentioned? Brian, I think you touched on that.
Yes, I did. Yes, so that we're currently running a prototype in partnership with Kogo, and at the moment it's being trialed with a handful of customers. Now, if that pilot goes according to plan, then the intention is that that will be rolled out across, you know, our SME base. And essentially, what that's going to do is help our customers track their carbon footprint based on the transactional elements and of their business activities. And then it will provide them an opportunity to take steps to reduce their carbon footprint based on the output from that. I believe at the moment the intention is that that's all will be made available for free to our clients. So it's a watch this space. Certainly we will publicize it once it's all done and dusted, and we'll make sure that all our SMEs are able to get on board and use that tool, because I think it will be absolutely fantastic to be able to track that carbon element of business activities.
You're absolutely right, Jane, and it's a brilliant question, because only with data will businesses be able to understand what their impact is, and only once you know the impact are you able to take steps and deliver the results as well. So I think that level of detail and data will be greatly appreciated. Question for you, Hiten. Range anxiety is a phrase we've heard a lot recently when consumers are considering changing to electric vehicles. How confident are we that we will have the infrastructure in place to meet the demand? You talked about 10 million vehicles on the road.
Do you know what, range anxiety? It's a word that's trending over social media when it's to do with electric vehicles and charging. So it's a fantastic question, and thank you for asking it. I think personally, I mean, even I had range anxiety, even though I'm immersed in this sector day in, day out on a full-time basis. When I got my first electric vehicle, even though the battery said I've got 180 miles on there and I only had to do a 22-mile journey, I was still looking at that battery indicator for the whole journey back home. But in reality, I think it's because it's a novelty, it's new. Within 24 to 48 hours, I didn't even look at it. And I've got comfortable with how I'm adopting to it. It's in our DNA, where we're used to going to a petrol station and we're used to how efficient our cars are, whether it's petrol or diesel, etc. But to answer your question about the infrastructure, the UK government has pledged a significant amount of money, £1.3 billion, where rapid chargers, 150 kilowatt and above, will be installed in the backbone of the motorway infrastructure and major A roads by between 2023 and 2025. And as I said on my presentation, that's only a proportion of it. There's still a huge requirement from private investment, such as banks and other lenders in the sector, in order to help this, because they're expecting £28 billion worth of infrastructure investment to be made in the next 9 years in order to meet that requirement. And that includes circa about £10 billion for domestic home chargers and £18 billion for the rest. And I think the key thing here is a lot of vehicles are now increasing their range. On average, 200 to 300 miles is normal now. A lot of vehicles go. I mean, there was a vehicle that came out only from Tesla the other day, which has in excess of 400 miles. When you take into account the average trip a commuter does per day, 86% people do no more than 40 miles a day. So we always have that one trip that we have to do, which just requires a little bit of planning. But with the infrastructure that's expected, there are already 50 kilowatt chargers on all major service stations anyway. But getting a sandwich, having a coffee, by then you'll be having that time in order to fill that in. But the likes of Shell, BP have already made a commitment by 2025. They will have rapid chargers in their petrol stations across the UK. And BP's CEO announced that you'll be able to charge your car in less than 12 minutes. He could have gone for a faster charge point, as he said on the stage, which would have done it in 4.5 minutes. But he said nobody would come in my store and buy a sandwich. So I decided to stick to the 12 minutes. But again, 12 minutes is phenomenally fast. And as technology evolves, I'm sure range will continue to increase as well. I think the only question, as I said in my presentation, will support and grants be available by the time that develops? Because the numbers are increasing and they can't make the cars quick enough at the moment. So the early adopters are definitely benefiting both financially and from a climate perspective.
And that's really interesting, an interesting glimpse into the future. You know, charging an electric car as quickly as that at the moment feels like science fiction rather than something that we would actually get close to. Question for you, Brian. How can an SME with limited funds invest in green initiatives to ensure they're getting the most out of the investment whilst also making the biggest impact? Thanks, Sandy, for that question.
That is a brilliant question, because one of the main questions we always get is the funding angle. You know, I've got limited resources. How do I invest in green energy assets, energy efficiency assets, and all of that? And I will say that it's a combination of looking around for, you know, what government support is available, and also what support is available through, you know, through your funders, including the Royal Bank. You know, from my perspective, what we've done recently is to launch a tool for businesses to find grants around their region. It's not green specific, however, it does include specific green grants that are available. And that's being launched on the bank's internet page. It's called Swoop Grant Finder. And I guess it's also thinking about, you know, what, from an impact perspective, it's how much detail you want to go into. Like I said during the presentation, it's baby steps. So sometimes when you start off, you might not be able to go into the full detail in terms of all the carbon accounting, you know, that needs to go into tracking each and every specific activity that you engage in. However, you know, it's making those little changes. And if you require support, by all means, a lot of, you know, funders are actively, you know, supporting this space. We've heard the budget that's been released yesterday. We're still, as part of our, you know, COP26 events, engaging through the trade bodies and having conversations around government policy, because we do believe that more can be done in this space. You know, so a combination of looking at what government support's available, what support you could get from your existing funders as well, will be the first approach to take. Hope that helps.
And actually hitting on an interesting point there, Brian, is that, Sandy, sometimes it doesn't involve spending a lot of money. Sometimes actually just making a change to culture or process, or actually thinking about how you're going to use energy and be efficient in your business. And I know that the Chamber can certainly help with that as well, in terms of the circular economy as well. So there's lots of resources out there, and actually starting that conversation is a great first step. Brian, were you going to come back in there?
No, I was just going to say, sometimes, you know, even the little steps you take may actually result in cost savings rather than being a drain on your finances. So again, those free resources that are available through the Chamber, you know, can actually be quite valuable in terms of working out what the returns and payback on some of those investments could look like.
Great, thank you for that. So, other question, and this question from David: why aren't local authorities installing lots of electric vehicle charging points right now? if the government is willing to pay, surely people will be more likely to buy an electric vehicle if they can see plenty of charging points around. Hitton, that sounds like a question for you.
Yeah, no, again, a really good question. And local authorities are in the process of installing charge points in local cities and towns, etc. I think ultimately it was all about funds, and the UK government has announced funds for local authorities to start accelerating that and creating hubs in cities as well. But it's really important to remember that it's not just about the public charging network, because a lot of the charging, I mean, I've had an electric car for almost 5 months now, and I appreciate with the COVID circumstances we find ourselves in, but I don't think I'll ever need to use a public charging network unless I'm really doing long distance journeys. Majority, if not all of my charging will be done at home during the time when I'm asleep, where the electricity price is at its lowest. And, you know, in over the last 5 months, my electricity cost is less than 6 pence on average per kilowatt, whereas the average is between 12 and 14 pence. So suddenly that starts adding up, whereas the cost of charging public is between 35 pence a kilowatt to 50 pence a kilowatt. And that's the prices today, because as people start transitioning to electric, they've got to bridge the gap of the fuel duty that they charge on petrol and diesel, which is worth £40 billion to the UK government. And I'm sure that there will be other elements and taxes that would come out in the future. But charging wise, yeah, local authorities are doing that. And I'm pretty confident that over the next 12 to 18 months, we'll start seeing more and more charging points pop up around cities and towns across the country.
Good, that is useful. And also really interesting to hear your insight about how now that you're living with an electric vehicle, you can't see yourself using much in the way of public network because you're doing that charging from home. And it underlines the point about, you know, the average journey is, you know, no more than 40 miles a day, but yet we always think about the longest possible trip. So it's great, great to get that insight.
I think, Kevin, the other thing, just to finish off on that, is having not seen inside a petrol station in the last 5 months, I've saved a fortune on junk food purchasing while I'm filling up as well. So there's an additional saving there as well, not
absolutely. It's good. Less chocolate bars and junk food. So listen, thank you both very much for the presentations and for answering those questions. What we're going to do now is move to breakout room. So anyone who goes into breakout room, really just to discuss next stages, next steps, and what we'll do is we'll pop in and out of those breakout rooms to answer any further questions. So Rebecca, Emma, if we could trigger the breakout rooms now, please. And what did you think? What's the impact on your business of climate change, particularly travel?
I mean, we don't have any vehicles at the minute, but it is something we've been looking at getting in the future. So it's more just forward planning. Really.
And what business do you have then, Daniel?
So I run a charity in Edinburgh, and we run a sort of an event space. So we're not very busy at the minute, for obvious reasons. Yeah. But we also help sort of similar buildings run events in their spaces as well. Hence why we're looking at getting a vehicle to move stuff around between venues.
Stuff around, yeah. And especially in Edinburgh, where there will be in time, you know, an ultra low emission zone, you know, internal combustion engines not allowed in, charges £12 a day, whatever it happens to be. You know, those days are coming. The council wants Edinburgh to be a net zero city. And so, yeah, going out and buying an old transit van's not going to really be the answer that's sustainable, you know?
No, I mean, they're on about pedestrianising the whole area around where we are anyway, because we're quite close to the centre.
Right. Whereabouts are you based?
Just on the Pleasance.
Oh, right, of course.
Just off, not far from Southbridge.
I know exactly where you are. Yeah. And there are lots of other things. We touched a bit on transport today, but even just tiny little actions to do with paper, thinking about process, trying to get things digitized. Don't send invoices in the post. Don't don't send checks. There's actually lots of stuff that you can do that happens to make you more efficient and save you money. That also just happens by a byproduct to be good for the environment.
Yeah, we're already mostly digital. When I started, I tried to sort of do away with having everything printed out. So all their documents and stuff are all digitized. It's just a couple of things we need wet signatures for like bank stuff. But we've managed to keep it to one small filing cabinet.
Good.
And if that gets too full, then there's something going wrong with that. So
yeah, I was going to say don't burn any of the paper because that's bad for the atmosphere. But you can send it for recycling to somebody.
We do.
Secure shredding. Yeah, absolutely right.
Shred it and compost it is what I normally do. So.
And what do you do for your energy generation? Where do you get that from?
Well, at the minute we get it from SSE. We're on a long-term contract with them. We are doing a major refurb at the minute, though, so we might be having to basically lose all of our existing meters and put in a new three-phase meter to serve the site, because it's quite an old building. It's got weird things with electricity meters like being everywhere in cupboards all over the place.
Right, yeah. So it sounds like the opportunity to tidy all that up.
Yes.
Yeah. And
we've just
on you go.
New windows and things for energy efficiency as well. So
yeah, no, that makes a difference. Solar panels anywhere at all?
No, we're in a conservation area, so we're just off the boundary of the UNESCO Edinburgh World Heritage Site. So I don't think they'd let us put solar panels on the roof.
No, and I would imagine the same would go for a windmill turbine. That wouldn't be allowed either. Well, it sounds like
we did look at that in the planning stage. Yeah. Well, I'm quite keen on environmental stuff anyway, and my partner runs the climate course for the Botanic Gardens, so
right.
I get told off if I don't do things at work.
You are absolutely clued into it.
Keeps you in check on that one.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, I use Octopus Energy at home for my personal energy, but I don't think they were around back when we signed this contract for an obscenely long period of time.
Yeah, no, these things happen. And do you, I suppose we talk about electric vehicles, but actually the best outcome in a post-pandemic world is that, people travel either actively, they walk, they cycle, or they get public transport. So in a way, we're trying to solve for one step, whereas actually the real ultimate conclusion, hopefully, is that that we don't need vehicles at all running around the city because there are alternative ways to get around.
Yeah, I mean, we sit on the community council as a community organisation anyway, and one of the things we keep feeding into is the city mobility plan for Edinburgh. And the thing that I keep sort of bringing up is small personal electric vehicles that are they're quite popular in Europe, is like electric scooters and things, and electric assisted bicycles, because technically you're not allowed to use them anywhere. They're illegal to use on the pavement and the road. But for sort of just traveling around the city relatively quickly, they're quite handy. And if there was provision made for them, like there is in, I think Malaga is the place I've seen them work the best. That would work quite well, I think, in the city centre, but it would require the council to make an allowance for having them in the city centre.
And if they're not allowed just now, that would be a big leap of faith for them.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. And electric bikes seem to be all the rage just now as well. Everyone I talk to getting an electric bike. They sound perfect.
They can only be, I think that there's so much power generated or provided by the electric motor. If it's over a certain amount, then it's classed as a personal electric vehicle, and they're not allowed to.
And they're not allowed. They need to be limited.
So you can't have the ones that you see some people on that just sit on, press a button and whiz off without any pedaling required.
Yeah, no, I think you always need some pedaling, and quite right too. Good. Listen, thank you very much for joining today. We wanted this session to be inspiring, engaging, allow people to make connections. Hopefully you've learned something from what we've talked about today. Maybe joined up some dots. There is a huge amount of stuff out there, either from the Royal Bank or the Chamber. And if there is anything that any one of us can do to help, then please feel free to get in touch. And good luck with your sustainability challenge. Thank you again for joining today. Emma, Rebecca, thank you for the organisation as well. And Craig, thank you for helping to pull the speakers together. I think they certainly had plenty to say on the sustainability front.